So why were the truckers upset specifically? There was border crossing issues, but why the truckers in particular?
Because after 2 years of our prime minister calling them heroes and liking them to soldiers going off to war, he decided to implement the cross-border trucker mandate. So unless they had a vaccine passport, they would have to quarantine for 14 days. So especially in Ontario, where they're always, like, some people are doing this every day.
Yeah.
How do you feed your family if you have to take 14 days off every time you cross the border? It's impossible. So these people, these blue-collar heroes, I call them, that he had propped up and complimented and sang their praises from the rooftops, had all of a sudden become public enemy number one. And that was it for them. And that's telling, because I'm telling you, they went for the healthcare workers and the doctors. And I thought, for sure, just like my speech, somebody was going to say something. They came after the RCMP, and I was like, somebody's got to say something. And then the military, and then the education system. And all of a sudden, there's all these mandates, and nobody was saying anything. And finally, when they came for the truckers, they're like, no, this is not acceptable. So I got that TikTok from Cindy about Chris, and I actually messaged her because there had been a convoy that came out here in 2019 that was advocating for our energy industry. And I said, well, what do you think about another convoy? And she's like, well, it didn't really accomplish much the first time. And I said, yeah, you're right. And then I messaged a friend of mine in Manitoba, and I said, what do you think about a convoy to Ottawa? And he said the same thing. So in the meantime...
Well, so what was it about the convoy idea you think that was attracting you? I mean, you're pursuing it with some degree of fervor, even though by your own admission, the last time it occurred, it wasn't that helpful. Why do you think that idea...
Because we needed to bring it to Parliament. I've seen rallies at the Ledge in Alberta, Regina, all the provinces. I've seen rallies, massive protests everywhere. The mainstream media was not reporting them, and nothing was changing. So we needed to get to Ottawa. And in the meantime, you know, Chris and Bridget and another group had been talking, should they do slow rolls or a shutdown? And then kind of collectively, basically what it was a very small group of people that had a lot of similar ideas, that knew something had to happen. And so I called up Chris, and we discussed the convoy to Ottawa, and I said, my background is logistics, organization, and administration. You're going to need social media, and you're going to need money. I'll start you a Facebook page, a Twitter account, and I'll set up a GoFundMe account. At that time, I didn't know that GoFundMe was as left-leaning as they were.
Oh, I should let everybody know, too, Tamara, under constraint by the Canadian government, is no longer allowed to engage in social media. So do you want to talk about the restrictions that have been placed on you?
That's one of my conditions, one of my very broad conditions. I am not allowed to log into my accounts, post to my accounts, or ask anybody to post on my behalf. If I do, I go directly back to jail.
Right. So you're essentially muzzled on the electronic communication front.
Yes, that's
right.
Now,
why can you do a podcast like this?
Well, after the POEC report came down, and I just could not stand to listen to Justin Trudeau tell people how he had their backs and he was keeping them safe anymore, because my head was going to explode. Keith and I went through my conditions very carefully. Very carefully. I was taking, it sounds stupid, but I was like taking words out, and I was rearranging the sentences to see if there was any possible way that I could be arrested for speaking. And what we concluded was that so long as I am not organizing a protest or advocating for a protest, exercising my freedom of assembly, basically, it's okay.
Now, how is it that it's possible for your right to freely assemble and your right to freely speak, obviously, how is it possible even that that's been abrogated? What have you been charged with? Let's start with that.
I've been charged with mischief, counseling to commit mischief, intimidation, counseling intimidation, and I believe the other one is obstruct a police officer and disobey a court order, I think, which would be the Emergencies Act, I'm assuming.
And which of those was the core charge? It was
the mischief.
But there was counseling to commit mischief to begin with.
That's right. I was charged.
So think about that, everyone. That was the initial charge. It's not mischief. which is, not one of the world's most serious charges, even though that can be relevant at some time, but counseling to commit mischief, which is like the derivative of a crime, right? So I don't even know what that means, but I guess you're going to find out because they're going to drag you through court. How much time have you spent in jail?
48 days. Well, 49 days, 48 nights.
Right.
Yeah,
And
18.
on what grounds precisely? Why did they hold you?
Well, originally I was denied bail because the Judge Bourgeois, who we found out later was a
Bourgeois?
former Liberal candidate. And
French?
Yeah.
It's just funny that's the name.
Julie
as far as I'm
Bourgeois.
concerned.
Yeah, it is kind of funny.
Those bourgeois, they hate the proletariat. Yeah. So he was a former Liberal.
She was.
She was. Yes, she was a former
Yes.
Liberal
Candidate.
Yes. This is Canada, folks.
Yes.
Right. She was, and she didn't recuse herself from the case because it wasn't a political case, obviously.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so, and oddly enough, like Chris Barber was arrested just before me, and he had his bail hearing and was just sent home. And then, of course, it was a long weekend. It was family weekend. And so we didn't have my decision heard until Tuesday morning. But by then, she'd watched this entire violent, horrific takedown of the convoy protest on TV. And so when I came in, she went up one side of me and down the other, and basically said I was a menace to society and a danger to her community. She said my community 12 times.
Mm-hmm. Where is she
Ottawa.
located? Oh, I see. So you were honking her into a state of
I
frenzy.
see.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. There were a lot of the haute bourgeois in Ottawa who didn't take kindly to being honked at. It's
Yes.
traumatizing,
Yes.
You have people whose lives have been destroyed come and, peacefully complain about it after being oppressed by dim-witted moralizers for 2 years. How dare
Which
you?
was frustrating because, we definitely didn't want to upset the Ottawa residents. That was never our intention. But you have to have some level of disruption. But for me to hear people talking about honking horns when we just drove across Canada, and I had people every single day, and still to this day, telling me they were planning to take their own lives, or that they had family members that had already taken their own lives, or that they were living in their car, they lost their business, they couldn't go kiss their mom goodbye before she died. And you're going to complain to me about honking horns? Are you kidding me? So for me, that was a real eye-opener because, of course we always know that there's the laptop classes, what we call them now. But it was really the sense, in some cases, not all of them, because there's some beautiful, lovely people in Ottawa. We had a lot of support from Ottawa residents and a lot of federal government employees. But it was almost a sense of like, how dare you, blue-collar workers with your dirty hands come and set up in
and
front
your
of-
ability to do things. That's the
Yes.
most annoying part of blue-collar people. They're good at doing things. It's
Yes.
like, that's really hard on people who can only think abstractly because they like to think they live in some sort of, what would you say, privileged moral universe where their ability to deal with abstractions is what constitutes real. And then they always end up depending on those bloody blue-collar people whenever anything needs to be done. It's very, very annoying.
Yes, yes.
The Bible is a root of wisdom, inspiration, and spiritual nourishment. The Hallow app empowers you to explore the Bible's profound teachings and to effortlessly incorporate them into your daily life. A great place to start while you deepen your understanding of the Bible is to check out Father Mike Schmitz's Bible in a Year, available on the Hallow app for brief daily readings and reflections. Here you can dive into an extensive library of Bible reading plans accompanied by insightful reflections and audio-guided meditations. Whether you're a seasoned Bible reader or just starting your journey, Hallow provides a platform for you to engage with Scripture like never before. Studying the Bible's literary brilliance has influenced countless writers, poets, and artists throughout history. By studying the Bible yourself, you'll gain a deeper appreciation for the power of storytelling, symbolism, and metaphor, enriching your understanding of literature across different genres. The Hallow app also helps you connect with a community of like-minded individuals, sharing experiences, insights, and encouragement along the path to spiritual growth. Download the app for free at hallow.com/Jordan. You can set reminders and track your progress along the way. Enrich your education and nurture your mind and soul today. Download the Hallow app at hallow.com/Jordan. That's hallowed.com/Jordan for an exclusive free month free trial of all 6,000 plus prayers and meditations.
So shortly after we got there was an injunction order. So we did have to stop honking horns. And honestly, the majority of us at the core organizers were relieved because it was getting to be a bit much. And, you know, when you've got like speakers up on stage and people are still honking their horn, you can't hear them, right? So that was good. I mean, we're glad that it stopped for the most part. But again, not all of them stopped because there was no bosses. This was a completely organic movement. These truckers just showed up. They're very strong people. They're independent thinkers. You know, they have a lot of responsibility on their shoulders. Lots of them are business owners. So they're going to do what they're going to do.
Right.
I mean, Tamara Beach wasn't going to tell them
If they were
what
the
to
sort
do.
of people who could be told what to do, they wouldn't have been in Ottawa with
That's
trucks.
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
So let's go back to when you were envisioning this. So you were starting to think about a convoy. How did it actually start to come about?
Miraculously. So I got the Facebook page going, got the GoFundMe going, and then we had road captains from every province. So what those were truckers normally in like Northern Saskatchewan, Southern Saskatchewan, Northern Alberta, Southern Alberta, and they organized their friends and truckers to come. And then we would just all meet along the highway. So one of my...
How over what period of time was this organized? How long did it take?
10 days.
10 days.
Wow, that's fast.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so that obviously shows that it was
the
time.
time was right.
It was
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
It
because
was
everybody
time.
clambered on board right
That's
away.
right. Which shocked us. I mean, and we recognized within 24 hours. In my head, my vision, I thought we'd maybe raise $20,000. A few truckers would drive across Canada, stand there with some signs, hop back in their trucks and come home. So within 24 hours, we had over $100,000 in donations already. And so with my experience with the Maverick Party, I was like, I need a finance committee. Boom. So I got some volunteers. We created a finance committee. And then I was also monitoring our social media.
Why did you do that?
Because the fundraiser was set up with my name on it. And it was important to me that Canadians that were donating, had a sense of who I was, because that's a lot of money. They were trusting me, essentially, with their money. And I wanted to explain the whole process, like how we were going to be accountable and transparent. I had 2 bookkeepers on the committee, and we had an accounting advisor, an accountant from Medicine Hat. And it was their money, so it was their decision. Like, you know, I wanted to let everybody feel like they had a say in this. Basically, I was running a government type running this organization, I guess, how I thought the government should be run.